When it comes to stroke versus aging, the very first difference is how quickly the symptoms appear. Stroke doesn't wait. It strikes like a thunderclap, in minutes or even seconds. Research from the American Stroke Association shows that nearly 80% of strokes present with a sudden loss of function, whether it's movement, speech, or vision, often catching people completely off guard. Aging, on the other hand, is a slow process. Your walking may get a bit slower over months, or your memory takes longer to recall names over years. But it never changes everything in an instant the way a stroke does. Let me share the story of Mr. James, 74-year-old retired school teacher from Ohio. One morning, while pouring coffee, he felt his right hand slip and the cup crashed to the floor. Within minutes, his wife noticed his words sounded slurred. They rushed to the emergency room, where doctors confirmed he was having an ischemic stroke. The speed of his symptoms was the key. Because his wife recognized the sudden onset and acted immediately, he received treatment in the golden window of under 3 hours. Today, James is back to gardening and walking his dog, something that might not have been possible if they had assumed it was just aging. So what's the takeaway? If something changes suddenly, whether it's weakness, speech, or vision, it's not aging. Aging creeps in slowly. Stroke shouts in seconds. The best action you can take is to treat sudden changes like an emergency. Call 911 right away. Don't wait to see if it goes away. Time lost is brain lost. Doctors say for every minute a stroke is untreated, nearly 2 million brain cells die. That's why recognizing speed is your first life-saving step. And yet, speed is only the beginning. Sometimes, the difference hides in how our brain handles words and memory. That's where things get even more surprising. One of the most confusing signs for families is when a loved one suddenly struggles with words. Stroke and aging can both affect memory and language, but the patterns are very different. In normal aging, it's common to forget a name and then remember it later, or to pause longer while searching for the right word. Studies from the National Institute on Aging show that mild word-finding difficulty is part of normal cognitive slowing, not necessarily disease. But when it comes to stroke, the change is immediate and dramatic. A person may suddenly lose the ability to speak clearly, slur their words, or be unable to understand what's being said. That's not gradual. It's abrupt, like flipping a switch. Take the case of Mrs. Linda, a 70-year-old grandmother from Texas. She was chatting with her daughter on the phone when suddenly her sentences turned into jumbled sounds. At first, her daughter thought it might be a bad phone connection, but within seconds, she realized her mother was unable to form proper words. She called 911 immediately. Linda was diagnosed with a left-sided ischemic stroke, which directly affected the brain's language center. Because her daughter acted quickly, Linda began speech therapy within days, And today she can once again tell stories to her grandchildren, though with a slight accent in her voice. Here's the key message. Occasional word slips with aging are normal, but sudden loss of speech or understanding is a red flag for stroke. If your loved one starts speaking strangely or can't find basic words all at once, don't brush it off. Instead, test them by asking a simple question like, "What's your name?" Or, "Can you repeat this sentence?" If they can't, it's time to call for help right away. And this leads us to another big clue. Language isn't the only sudden loss. Sometimes the body itself reveals the difference, especially in how we move. Movement tells a powerful story about the difference between aging and stroke. With normal aging, you may notice a slower pace, stiff joints in the morning, or even a mild tremor that shows up when you're tired. These changes creep in gradually and affect both sides of the body in a fairly even way. But a stroke is entirely different. It usually strikes one side. Sudden weakness, heaviness, or even complete paralysis in the face, arm, or leg. Doctors call this hemiparesis, and it happens because blood flow to one part of the brain is blocked, shutting down control over the opposite side of the body. Let's look at the experience of Mr. Robert, 70-year-old veteran from Florida. He was playing chess at a community center when his friends noticed something unusual. His left arm kept sliding off the table, and he couldn't seem to lift it back. Minutes later, his smile looked uneven, one side of his mouth drooping. They didn't wait. They called 911. In the hospital, scans confirmed a right-sided stroke. Because his friends recognized the sudden, one-sided weakness, Robert received clot-busting medication quickly. Months of physical therapy later, he's now back to his morning walks, though he carries a cane as a reminder of how close he came to losing his independence. So how can you apply this? Here's a simple tip. If someone complains of sudden heaviness or numbness on just one side, ask them to lift both arms. If one arm drifts down, it's a classic warning sign of stroke. Don't wait for it to get better on its own. Time is critical, and medical help must come immediately. Now, while movement changes can be dramatic, there's another area where the difference is just as striking: our vision. Sometimes the eyes give the first clue, and it can be just as life-altering. Our eyes often reveal what words or movements cannot. With aging, vision usually declines slowly. You might need stronger reading glasses over the years, or notice more difficulty seeing at night. Cataracts and age-related macular degeneration are common, but they progress gradually, giving the brain and lifestyle time to adjust. Stroke, however, changes vision in an instant. A sudden loss or blurring in one eye, or even a field of vision disappearing, is a hallmark sign. Studies from the American Academy of Ophthalmology show that up to 30% of stroke patients experience sudden vision problems, often mistaken for eye disease rather than a brain emergency. Consider the story of Mrs. Caroline, a 76-year-old retired librarian from California. One afternoon, while reading her favorite novel, she suddenly realized that the words on the right side of the page had vanished. At first, she thought her glasses were dirty. She cleaned them, blinked, and even rubbed her eyes. But the problem stayed. Luckily, her grandson, visiting for the weekend, remembered hearing that sudden vision loss could mean stroke. They called 911 immediately. Doctors confirmed she had an occipital lobe stroke, the part of the brain that processes vision. Because they caught it early, Caroline began rehabilitation that helped her adapt and regain part of her sight. Today, she continues to read, though now with larger print books and more light. The lesson is clear. Aging steals vision slowly, but stroke rips it away without warning. If you or someone you love notices sudden blurring, partial blindness, or trouble focusing in one eye, it's not just old age. It's time to act fast. Cover one eye, then the other, to test vision quickly. If one side is suddenly weaker, emergency care is urgent. Tell me in the comments. Press 1 if you believe you could spot the difference, or 0 if you're not sure yet. And make sure you subscribe so you never miss life-saving tips like this. But vision is only part of the story. Sometimes, the first thing people notice isn't in the eyes or hands at all. It's in the way we walk and keep our balance. How we walk says more about our brain than most people realize. With normal aging, balance issues usually come slowly. Joints stiffen, muscles lose strength, and reflexes aren't as sharp as they once were. An older adult may occasionally feel unsteady, especially when tired, but with rest and caution, the sense of stability often returns. Stroke is very different. It can steal balance in a matter of seconds. One moment you are standing tall, the next you can't coordinate your steps, as if your body no longer follows your commands. Research from the Centers for Disease Control shows that sudden loss of coordination is one of the most overlooked stroke warnings, yet it can predict long-term disability if ignored. So how do you tell the difference? Aging creates a gradual wobble that improves with focus or support. Stroke, on the other hand, creates sudden clumsiness. Dropping objects, stumbling sideways, or being unable to stand upright. This isn't about fatigue, it's about a brain under attack. Doctors often use a simple test. Ask the person to walk a straight line or touch their nose with one hand. If they cannot do it all of a sudden, stroke is the likely cause. Here's what you can do right away. If you or someone near you suddenly loses balance, don't assume it's just a bad step or tired legs. Sit them down immediately to prevent falls, and call 911 without delay. Unlike the gradual stiffness of aging, sudden loss of balance can mean minutes count for survival. Now, balance is only one piece of the puzzle. Another difference lies deep in the way the body feels itself. Sometimes numbness speaks louder than words. Our sense of touch often tells us when something is wrong. With aging, Changes in sensation usually happen slowly, and they tend to be fairly even on both sides of the body. Poor circulation, arthritis, or peripheral neuropathy can cause tingling in the feet or hands, but it builds up over months or years. Stroke, however, is sudden and one-sided. You might notice numbness in the face, arm, or leg, usually just on one half of the body. According to the National Stroke Association, about 65% of stroke survivors experience sudden numbness or tingling, often paired with weakness or a heavy feeling. Let me share the story of Mr. Harold, a 70-year-old retired bus driver from Michigan. He was playing cards with friends when his left hand suddenly felt like it had fallen asleep. He shook it, thinking it was just poor circulation, but the numbness spread up his arm within minutes. His friends saw that he couldn't even feel the cards anymore. They called for help immediately, and at the hospital, doctors confirmed a stroke affecting the sensory cortex. Because Harold got treatment quickly, physical therapy helped him recover sensation in his hand, though he still describes it as wearing a light glove. Without that fast reaction, he could have lost much more. Here's what you should do. If numbness shows up suddenly, especially on just one side, don't ignore it. Try this simple test. Close your eyes and ask someone to lightly touch both hands or both cheeks. If you feel it less on one side, that's a red flag. Time to call 911. Aging may bring tingling in both feet after a long day, but stroke steals sensation in an instant, and only from one half of the body, and sometimes the warning comes not from weakness or numbness, but from pain itself. A headache unlike any you've had before. Headaches are common with age, but their type and timing matter. Normal aging headaches often come from tension, stress, high blood pressure, or dehydration. They build gradually, are mild to moderate, come and go, and usually ease with rest, water, or simple medicine. Stroke headaches are very different. They strike suddenly, often called the worst headache of my life. Doctors warn a severe, abrupt headache, especially if it feels unusual, can signal a hemorrhagic stroke, where bleeding occurs inside the brain. Research in Stroke Journal shows nearly 25% of hemorrhagic strokes start this way, often with nausea, vomiting, or vision changes. How to tell them apart? Aging headaches respond to rest and rarely appear out of nowhere. Stroke headaches arrive like an explosion, with no clear cause, and don't ease when you lie down. If sudden pain comes with numbness, weakness, or slurred speech, it's an emergency. Here's a simple rule. If a headache feels sharper, stronger, and different from anything before, treat it as urgent. Don't wait. Call 911. Acting fast saves brain cells and prevents disability. Tell me in the comments. Press 1 if you'd call for help, or 0 if you might hesitate. And subscribe, so these reminders stay fresh. But knowing the signs isn't enough unless you act when they appear. That's why management matters most. Recognizing the difference between aging and stroke is only half the battle. What truly saves lives is how you respond. Stroke is always an emergency. Doctors use the FAST rule: face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, time to call 911. Patients who reach the hospital within 3 hours of their first symptoms are far more likely to recover without serious disability. Aging changes, by contrast, do not require rushing to the ER. They can be managed with lifestyle habits, healthy eating, staying active, regular checkups, and social engagement. Consider the story of Mrs. Eleanor, a 60-year-old church volunteer from Georgia. She experienced sudden numbness in her right cheek during choir practice. Her friends remembered the FAST rule, noticed her speech was slurred, and called for help. At the hospital, she received clot-busting medication within the golden window. Months later, Eleanor is back singing every Sunday. Her voice softer, but her spirit unbroken. Without that quick action, her life could have been completely different. Here's what you can take home. If symptoms appear suddenly, don't second guess. Call 911 first. Every minute matters. For gradual changes, like walking slower or needing glasses, focus on lifestyle care. Eat more vegetables, move daily, manage blood pressure, and keep close ties with loved ones. The truth is, knowing when to act can mean the difference between a full life and years of struggle. Now that we've explored the differences, it's time to bring everything together with hope and motivation for the future.